So I thought I'd film every single plant that I own. The purpose of this is to actually keep track of what I have and decide if I like them, the care habits for them, and also to track how they're doing in a few years from now. So here is one of my oldest plants. This is an African violet. It's pretty generic. It's from the grocery store. It needs to be watered regularly and the soil enjoys being moist. The leaves are fluffy and velvety and occasionally need to trim as well as a rotation. This is a very, very new plant in a very questionable state. This is a Hoya lobbii. It's currently covered in a sulfur treatment because I was treating my other Hoya anyways. In theory, this will grow black flowers at some point. We'll see how it goes. Currently, very, very new to me. This is a mixed pot of cuttings. There's two Cebu Blue Pothos over here and a Pearls and Jade Pothos over here. Very new. The Cebu Blue cuttings have extremely long roots. I got them from a trade, but they don't seem to be showing any signs of growth. So that's the Cebu Blue cuttings and the Pearls and Jade. Next up are some of my trailing plants. This is a Hoya Polyneura. It is also known as the mermaid or fishtail Hoya. This is the one I treated just in case things were going wonky, and it's finally putting out a new growth point over here. So this teeny tiny little leaf. Otherwise it hasn't really done much since giving me this one leaf from the nursery. This is my oldest trailing plant. This is a string of hearts. It's got several feet of hearts. It tends to have a greeny speckled pattern, and depending on how much light it gets, the intensity of the green pattern varies. Oldest trailing plant, and it just sort of keeps on going, and I've taken several cuttings from it in the past to share with friends. I found that it likes a lot more moisture than the internet claims it should. In a similar vein, this is a string of hearts silver glory. The leaves are a lot different shaped. They're a little more like melony shaped, and the leaves are a lot more silver. Those are the main differences. I do believe the leaves get a little more green if they don't get enough sunlight, and the backs are quite purple, but you can't really see in this lighting. This one grows really, really fast, probably my fastest string of hearts. I've had it for the second longest amount of time, and I've also taken several cuttings of it. This here is my string of hearts Varigated. It's variegated, and if it gets a lot of sunlight, it puts out these really red leaves, sort of neutral on the redness of the leaves. It is, however, my most finicky string of hearts, the slowest grower, the fastest to drop leaves. The other two are physically quite tough. This one is a lot harder to deal with. So that, my string of hearts. I have thus far only been partially successful with propagation, so you can see that I didn't really try very much. But it's grown like half a meter since I first got it, I'd say. Not quite a trailing plant, but quite closely related. This is Hoya compacta. It's a very fast grower for me, so I purchased it when it was this short. It's now well over doubled in size, and currently trailing around a macrame hanger that I have for it. Super easy. The only issue is if it gets mealybugs, you're sort of doomed because of all the little nooks and crannies. A very new purchase. This is a whole pile of Spanish moss. I decided to get a very small amount, relatively speaking, just for the cost. It's an epiphyte, should uptake water and moisture from the atmosphere, but if it doesn't, you can dip it in water with a little bit of fertilizer, and then grow it out longer and longer and longer. This is another Hoya. This is truly my most recent interest. This is a Hoya linearis. It eventually puts out these extremely long dangles and lemony smelling flowers. I quite like it. It's really cute, really fuzzy, and it looks like it's actually starting to put out what are called peduncles, which means that flowers have a probability of blooming. This also has a sulfur treatment on it, but I don't think it ever needed it because the new growth up here has grown about 4 inches since I first got it, less than a month ago. Next plant is a propagation slash cutting slash baby plant. This is a really teeny tiny dragon scale alocasia. It literally just started drooping about an hour ago, so these stems were upright. Apparently alocasia are known to do that. The large one's a little too large for this. I really enjoy both, but I had an issue with thrips not too long ago. Separated all my plants, now they're all living in hydroponics where possible. So yeah, good stuff. I got about 9 corms out of the large mother plant, so I should be getting lots and lots of baby alocasia soon, and I plan on gifting most of them away. Super easy to take care of, very, very low humidity requirements, despite what the internet says. Teeny tiny baby raven ZZ. Technically not supposed to propagate, and this plant snapped on me, so I'm just keeping it for myself. Plus it puts out new shoots all the time. The mother plant is about 5 times this tall. Really, really cute. Honestly, quite easy to root. I'm not sure why it did so well. Only took about 2 months for it to be reasonably large enough for me to put in soil. So better than what I've seen some other people say. The leaves come in green on that one and eventually fade to black. This is a neon pothos cutting. Very straightforward, and the mother plant lives with some other people I know. And they come in quite bright. Actually, this one's probably suffering nutrient deficiency, but they're quite bright and grow really easily, but not as easy as some other varieties. This one's also living in hydroponics. Here is my really goth AF plant in terms of the leaf dangling over my cat head. This is a velvety philodendron. It's a little beat up because I purchased it like that. It's put out several extensions and vines. It's grown probably about 5 or so inches since I first got it on every single vine. It's also put out cuttings. The leaves come in reddish bronze, and they fade off to this dark green depending on the conditions you put it in. Really, really easy, surprisingly expensive for such an easy plant, and also has a really fun texture. Next up, some more cuttings. This is a white princess philodendron, has a lovely half moon, definitely putting out very reverted slash slightly damaged green leaves. Not a big deal. I bought this plant because of the hype. It was cheap, relatively. I actually gifted away the mother plant, took some cuttings, just curious to see if what kind of genetics I'll get out of this half leaf. Obviously it's literally like striped down the stem, and the new node is coming in from the very green part. So, you know, we'll see. Probably nothing. Eventually I'll just pass this on, chuck it. But it's cute and really, really fun to look at in the meantime. Plus very minimal browning. One of my OG favorite plants is way too large to actually look, but there's 2 types over here. This is Oxalis triangularis. They have these really pretty leaves that actually fold up at night and become little triangles and look like little umbrellas. There's a few different variants of them. I don't know what makes the difference, but this one has a darker outer edge in comparison to the middle. They also have these really cute flowers. Drop everywhere and make a mess. They grow from corms, which are quite something to look at the first time you split one apart, but very prolific, very easy, slightly invasive if you don't take care of it, but super, super cute. And they're always blooming for me regardless of the weather. Allegedly they do have a rest period, I just haven't found it yet, or I have so many plants I just don't notice. Alright, so this plant is one that lives in my mini greenhouse. This is a raindrop peperomia. You can see this from the raindrop shape. I'm using it to represent two things. First of all, I have a regular Palea peperomoides that's circle shaped, has a slightly different growth pattern, but currently it's living in isolation. I don't want to touch cross-contaminate on my plants because it did have signs of thrips 3 weeks ago, so just in case. But this is going to be interesting to look back on in a few months because this particular plant was cutting a gift and it grew a third leaf. That third leaf is no longer there. It grew roots. The roots are no longer there. It grew another third leaf. No longer there. I've tried different things with it. I put it in water. I put it in leca. I chopped the stem because it was starting to rot. So we'll see how it goes. But the leaves and the petioles to the stem seem to detach way more easily than my other Palea. But, you know, it's okay if it doesn't work out. I just really wanted a bushy, hanging, overflowing series of raindrops. But again, if it doesn't work out, I can always get another cutting. This guy is also a cutting. This one almost certainly had flat mites, so this was the reason why I treated all my Hoyas in the first place. But this guy is like a fresh cutting from the original Hoya australis lisa. It used to be really expensive apparently, but I've always seen them available as like 5-leaf plants for like $5 to $10, so not too bad. Currently rooted in sphagnum. We'll see if it grows. If it doesn't, oh well. I'm not too fussed. I just thought the leaf pattern was really cute and I wanted to try cheap Hoya to see how I could deal with the genus. The answer was not very well because it didn't grow, but it also didn't die. And then I went ahead and bought more expensive Hoya that I prefer, and those are actually doing really well for me. So who knows what's going on with this one. Pretty sure it has flat mites. Now, another plant that lives in my greenhouse. You can't see this very well because the lighting isn't great. But this is my Drosera rotundifolia. It lives in a petri dish. It is quite flushed and red. It's a carnivorous plant. Unfortunately, there's been nothing to catch lately. I haven't had any fungus gnats for the past month or so, maybe a little less. So eventually I'm going to have to buy a fish feed if it doesn't catch other things. But the exciting part is that it's putting out flowers, which means at some point I might be able to produce new plants. These plants are actually from one mother plant that I gave away, and the mother plant was around the size of this guy, and it produced several other plants. So it lives in mostly distilled / rainwater. It does require extremely high humidity. This guy is a rehab plant. This is a calathea. It currently has one leaf with a second one on the way. For a while, it only had something that looked like this, a stick with a leaf about to unfurl. So it's extremely finicky. Leaves used to be like this large. Really didn't like its life here. I think the humidity was way too low for its preference. So I completely converted it into a hydroponic system. I'm already getting a little bit of root rot inside the hydroponic system. We'll see if it survives that because I don't want to disturb the roots while it's putting out a new leaf. And if it dies, it dies. I'm not too fussed. I've decided after the amount of grief this plant has given me, it's not worth it. Plus it's getting a little sun bleached because it lives in the cabinet / greenhouse with my carnivorous plant, which likes lots of sun, and these guys are medium light-ish canopy plants. So it's getting a little bleached, which means all these really pretty markings are less visible and less high contrast. Just another quick cutting. This is a red arrowhead syngonium. The appeal of these syngonium is that their backs are extremely red. This is a cutting from the mother plant that I got in a trade. I separated them out because one leaf showed thrip damage. So this is meant to represent the entire plant. I am noticing that syngoniums are a little slower to root than pothos, which is my primary experience plant. So yeah, it's doing its thing. It'll be fine. Old classic spider plant. This one is a curly variety, I believe the curly Bonnie. You'll notice that there's some bird poop on it that I'm just leaving as is, and some eaten damage. Totally fine, non-toxic, and it's doing okay. It's an inner variegated spider plant. Not super exciting, not expensive, not rare. Kind of cute. I'm actually glad it doesn't curl immensely because it actually makes the plant look kind of messy otherwise. But I also wonder if I just have like regular spider plant mixed in here. I recently also got some spider cuttings from a trade, spider plant cuttings, so those will be going into an office somewhere else. In the meantime, this one stays with me. Another classic. This is a monstera. It's a baby monstera that I got from my friend's basket. I have a very, very large monstera that a friend left behind with me to rehab because it has mealy bugs. It's also, the leaves are like this large, larger than my random Toronto Flower Market backdrop. Yeah, I've never wanted a monstera because they grow so large, and I'm not really interested in the fenestrations, to be honest. But now that I have them, I'll grow them, see how it goes, see if I can get one of the vining ones instead. I think those are way prettier than these just like plain glossy leaves, but maybe it'll grow on me. I don't think so. They have really, really long aerial roots. I'm not a fan. Monstera deliciosa, this one's got a slightly curled leaf. Alright, so this one's a problem plant, so I'm not going to actually touch anything, but here is one of my stingray alocasia leaves. Looks like a stingray. Has a patterned stem. But yeah, I'm not going to touch it down because at some point it did have thrips. I'm pretty sure I've cleared it. Oops. And it's so large that I just knocked into my phone. But yeah, so I cleared the thrips using a combination of an extreme amount of rinsing off of plants, a neem oil diluted soap spray, and I'm hoping that's everything, though I am seeing a bit of thrip damage still that I think might be new, so I might have to go treat it again, which just means running it through water and just knocking off any new growth from the bugs. Alright, I am down to my last two plants, or last two representative plants of what I own. This is a bunch of Calais seedlings that have sort of done okay, sort of been not taken care of very well. You can see that they haven't received a lot of light. But I've got a couple more large Calais sitting in my windowsill and they're doing really well. I tend to grow them in a mix of varieties just because they root so readily. So these guys have been grown in those like coir pucks and now transferred into regular rooting potting soil with perlite mix. This was one of my trouble plants. This is the backside. This is my Pothos Pearls and Jade, of which I took a cutting from because I was worried it wouldn't do well. This is also one of my oldest plants, and it's always been a slow grower, but of course it received thrip damage. Unfortunately, when my plants were taken care of by someone else, I didn't realize what was going on, and it was a pretty minor infestation, to be honest. If it were serious, I would have just chucked it, because thrips are a pain. But it's got really, really beautiful coloration, really fun, minus the damage. So I've checked this one regularly for new thrip damage. I think they're all gone. I did convert them completely into hydroponics, which you can't see. But it lives in a water solution and means it's really, really easy to rinse. So those are all the plants and the plant types that are under my care that I actually went out and purchased or sought out for myself. There's a few other plants that I take care of that I can't show either because they have bug damage and I don't want to transfer them, or because they aren't technically mine. I've also got like 30 pots of propagations, a lot of corms, a little wet sticks, but those aren't going to be interesting until they actually start growing, and then I'm not going to keep most of them. So, ooh, there's one more plant that I can't show because it is my bear paw plant, and it tends to drop leaves every single time I move it. So I think that is actually every single plant type I own now. So I'll probably check back in on myself in a few months. I am planning on acquiring a couple more plants. I might change my mind. Unfortunately, I really wanted a Hoya retusa, but the place I ordered it from showed me a photo and it was extremely bare in a very large pot, so I'm actually worried it has root rot or isn't going to do well, so I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I'm going to go take a look and, see how I feel. and there is going to be a Hoya petiolata, which was really cheap. I think the leaf pattern's super pretty, looks very prehistoric, and I think I'm okay with having like at least one Hoya that has extremely long vines but no leaves, because that's not a super pretty growth pattern. So I think that's it. I'm gonna touch base with myself, and I guess whoever's watching this video, in the future, see if I still like my plants, see if I got rid of any, if the ones that I'm rehabbing actually become mine, or if I return them to their owners, then I'll just add them into my stash of plants. Otherwise, I'm gonna write a list of everything I have, and it'll be interesting to check in later to see how things change.